There's incredible builds happening all over the place. We have an entire island dedicated to waste disposal that's just starting to see its life as a national monument, a courthouse being built, a power station, and some tremendous government programs that are going to stimulate the world's economy and act as incentives for players. I'm going to describe how each of these programs work because they each operate a little differently with stores, contracts, and laws. So let's get going. First, I'm going to start here with Waste Island. This is a government-owned property on a little island that was set aside to do nothing more than house tailings and other garbage. After a while, miners wind up with tons of this product and wind up storing it in stockpiles underground where they've been mining. But there is a way to be able to take this waste product on the server and turn it into an actual economic incentive. First, what's been done is that the government has set up a small store in the center of these massive stockpiles and buys the tailings with government funds for a very small fee. This provides an incentive for players to transport the tailings to Waste Island that either the miner themselves can do or provide as an opportunity for other players looking to transport it and make a little cash. The centralization of the tailings not only helps put all the pollution in one area, but it serves as a building block for other government programs and contracts. This enormous building that's being erected around this cluster of tailing stockpiles is built through government programs and offers jobs and payment to people on the server. A separate store has been created that purchases a few base products that are used to put together the building. And the building actually does need continual additions. As tailings are delivered to the stockpiles, they fill up, so you need levels above each set of stockpiles to place another set of stockpiles to hold more tailings. So the delivery of the tailings themselves is what serves as that building block to create a self-perpetuating need to create the ramps and landings, stores, walls, and all of that the government helps fund. People get to sell some base products like mortared stone and can also contribute to the various contracts to build out parts of the storage facility. People also like to bring extra products out here like dirt that seem to be in abundance, which also fill up the storage and requires more building. But beyond the physical capacity building itself, there's current plans in the works to create an aqueduct around the whole facility, as well as flying buttresses and anything else you can creatively imagine to help beautify what will eventually become this national monument rising high up into the air. This essentially creates a money sink, and every game needs these. Every block that gets laid consumes some of the money in circulation, uses up some of the product created by the players, and provides a reason for them to make more. You need things to do and reasons to play in a game like Eco that's an open sandbox without a distinct objective, at least on the long-running servers that don't have a meteor. And once you have leveled up your character and a set of skills, you need reasons to produce your goods. For some folks, it's enough to just keep building their own houses and skyscrapers, but many people run out of things that they actually need to build for themselves. So a primary function of the government is to help provide these kinds of incentives and money sinks. If you're in a long-running server, you need to have continual goals and needs for its players to fulfill, or eventually you run out of reasons to play. There's a second build project for a courthouse building in one of the townships. This development project runs a little differently than Waste Island. In this project, a store was created that buys every single type of construction material and buys it for slightly more than the current market value on the server. The buy price also scales depending upon the tier of material that's being bought. So for instance, you might get half a credit for a tier 1 material, but get a 2 credit profit for the top tier 4 material. For this build, one or more people accept the contract to help construct the building, but don't actually receive payment from the contract directly. Their payment comes from the selling of materials that they've bought from anyone on the server to this government store dedicated to the courthouse build. Because it scales depending on the tier of material, it encourages players to use the best material they can find for the build. but doesn't restrict them either. So they're given a lot of freedom to design and build and use the materials that they think will look best. The top tier materials also consume the largest amount of product, so each block laid works as the maximum money sink that you can create on the server. Also, the more they build, the more they get paid. If there's a lot of building, this creates a demand for various products. So even people not directly contributing to the build are a part of the project by having to produce lots and lots of material. This very open-ended kind of incentive allows players to contribute across a wide skill set to a central project that's actually needed. You need a building to be able to house your various types of government objects to make laws, create roles, set districts, and all kinds of things. Even people doing the cooking and farming skill benefit from this build because of the calories consumed at each one of the work tables to produce the products, which the Tier 4 materials are again the hungriest in terms of calorie consumption. Now there's a reason why the Wasted Island build specifically requested lower tier building items like the mortared granite, mortared stone, and stone ramps. It was to provide opportunities to new players as well. The Courthouse build is a bit more incentivized for the higher tier materials, which is good. But if you're a new player taking on the initial skills, it's good to have opportunities available to you as well. By specifying mortared stone, for example, as the specific material, it keeps those opportunities open for the new guys. Sometimes it can be good to leave it open, but other times good to be very specific about the types of materials you want to use, particularly if you're not seeing a lot of that material being traded on the open market. And believe it or not, that massive tailings building has used thousands and thousands of stone, even for its first 2 layers. So even though it's a single building, it really is offering a good opportunity. Next is this little power station that's been created for the people living in the district called Plainsville. Now it's very true that in late game development, you can just plop down a wind turbine or solar generator and be done with it. But that's the problem. Doing so means you're done with it. As soon as you sit down that wind turbine, you essentially ended opportunities for some players. Why is that? By using these combustion generators that you see here, they consume gasoline or biodiesel. The barrels needed for the petroleum consume ore. That keeps smelters in business, which also keeps oil drillers in business. The oil refineries you use to make the gas or biodiesel consume coal, or better yet, charcoal produced from lumber. And of course, all these activities consume calories that keeps the cooks and farmers employed. Now it's not a massive demand, but every bit on the server all adds up. You may even be wondering why I have 4 of these combustion generators in this building. So let me explain that. Each one, when fully fueled, will only run for about 8 hours. But the devices are smart enough to only turn on when there's an electrical demand for them to be in use. So what happens is, one generator is typically enough to run several houses and buildings. When it runs out of fuel, the next generator will kick on and continually power the city. And it will continue on, in this case, until 32 hours of fuel are consumed. That's a total of 80 barrels of gasoline being consumed every 32 hours. That's not bad for an ongoing and continual draw of goods needed for this power station. Gasoline is also the preferred product here because it runs things about 20% longer than biodiesel or raw petroleum. And just to make sure the generators keep running and keep using fuel, I've got a couple lights on the building, so it'll always be making that little bit of request for electricity. Lastly, I'm going to talk about a program that isn't fully developed yet, so it's probably better news for another video. But I'm going to introduce it here because it fits in with this theme, and it's something that we've already begun to put in the works. A land district was set aside that's going to serve as a build location for each player to create their own elaborate building that will probably turn into a kind of skyscraper. This is how the program works. Each player will be given a set of land claims in this new district. Everyone on the server is going to receive a property tax for all the land claims that they own. The more land claims they own, the more they get taxed. which gives new players that probably haven't gone in and purchased or researched all the skill scrolls a bit of a break. And it also naturally scales upwards to those that have extracted the land claims from every skill, and maybe even bought extra scrolls along the way. In fact, just to help the new players a little bit more, they are totally exempt from the tax entirely until they take their second skill. But here's where the building part comes in. Players can reduce their property tax and even eliminate it entirely by building their skyscraper in this Otisburg district. For each block laid, it'll reduce their tax by a very small fraction. And similar to the Courthouse build, the amount reduced scales depending upon the tier of material they use, which again encourages the use of higher tier materials, but doesn't necessarily prevent someone from building the tallest tower in the world out of hewn logs. So there's an obvious incentive here to perform some construction on a regular basis in this new district to reduce that plague of being taxed on a daily basis. There's a little bit more going on with this build, such as a rebate of credits you get as you build that you can use to purchase materials essentially for free from a special Otisburg store, kind of like cashing in coupons. But like I said, we just started setting out the land claims that'll be turned over to players, putting together the laws and all of that. So it's a topic for another video to cover in more detail about how that's going. For now, just realize that this is a big server-wide incentive for every player to contribute to a building project entirely of their own design. It is incentivized to reduce that new property tax. It's also one that'll create a high demand for lots of products and touch every skill, which is what this video is mainly about, creating incentives and money sinks so players always have the next thing to work towards on the server. I've spent a lot of my time recently involved in getting these various government programs all set up, but there's still some progress on my own devious plans that I'll have to get you caught up with later. I hope you like seeing the progress on these server-wide projects. This Dad Speed server is on day 70, believe it or not, and still feels like it's going strong with a lot more opportunities ahead. I know I'm still making and selling products like a madman, and people are constantly messaging about needing this thing or that thing, so there's a lot of room for new players to still join and contribute. Like and subscribe to keep following this playthrough, and I'll be talking to you later.